This is a Clouds Weather Alert.
Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, tracking Tropical Storm Helene. And we wanted to break in because we have some new alerts issued by the Hurricane Center, which I'll get to in just a moment. Hurricane warning, including, though, parts of the Big Bend region. And I'll be breaking that down in detail. But you can see the track here, still expecting a Category 3 hurricane here in toward the Gulf of Mexico. A major hurricane off of Tampa here as you get toward about, as of the latest advisory here, it's going to be around 2 o'clock on Thursday, it would seem, and then this will track there across the Big Bend. It would indicate right now, anyway, this forecast track, and being towards South Georgia there around 2 a.m. on that Friday morning. I know you can see those thunderstorms there trying to wrap around the center. We've seen a lot more organization here today, and that's why it was named, as it did form into a tropical storm Helene, and it's going to keep trying to organize and probably have a phase here of rapid intensification as we look ahead here in toward the timeline. So just got to be aware of that. You just got to be very cognizant and make sure you're following those evacuation orders here if those are issued for your area. I know, especially concerned about those areas that are vulnerable from a threat of storm surge. So we're going to be watching this carefully. You can see the point. This is sort of a strong tropical storm there centered around Albany there around 2 a.m. on that Friday, but approaching the coast here, the major hurricane and making landfall there Thursday evening, it would seem, at this point. I know maybe just a tad slower than what we were showing you last night here on our coverage. And I know this update, we won't go as long as some of the other updates here, maybe, but I just wanted to kind of pop in to give you the latest alerts. So let's go ahead and switch on over toward the graphic system right now as we go ahead and kind of indicate what's going on. I know this is forecast to be the strongest United States landfalling hurricane so far this year, and the size of it bigger than a lot of storms, the strength of it, concerning as well. I know this could bring devastating impacts to the area. I know right now the official track has it going pretty much right through Tallahassee. Of course, there's a cone of concern though, and there's wiggle room where the greatest impacts could be, and that cone has shrunk some as we're kind of looking at things. You see it from just around Panama City, the furthest west track that we could expect based on just the history of storms here, and based on the model guidance, and the furthest east track here around Cedar Key and Levy County. So I know still impacts felt far away though from the center, and you see a hurricane warning in play for Tallahassee and many other counties around there. So let me go ahead and switch to our other source. That hurricane warning's in red on that there on the map. This is a new thing. I know we've had it a little bit with a couple storms here as we've been looking at things, a couple systems, but we didn't have it during Debbie here as we were looking back, toward August, where it shows the inland alerts on the graphic like this. So that is very helpful, obviously, to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on here as the scenario does evolve. So we just really, want to be cognizant of what's going on here and the like. And here is that hurricane warning area in this maroonish color here, maroonish color race, and you can see areas there of Leon County, Gadsden County, Liberty, Wakulla, Franklin, Gulf, just outside area, Jefferson, Madison, Taylor, Lafayette, Dixie, Levy, all under a hurricane warning. That means conditions will be too dangerous to prepare for the impending hurricane within 36 hours. There's also a storm surge warning in play, which we'll get to in a moment. But wanted to see that hurricane warning on this map here on that zoomed in view. So you have areas there under the hurricane warning, like Perry there. You have Horseshoe Beach under this, Mayo, over toward areas around Cedar Key as well. So you just got to be really cognizant here with this and heed those evacuation orders. And keep in mind, this could be expanded as we go back over to the hurricane watch now. You can see that is in play for areas further on off toward the east here. I know we're looking at things in toward Lake City and Live Oak with a hurricane watch in that pinkish color. Yes, have the hurricane watch for Gilchrist County, so areas like Trenton, around western Alachua County. So Archer and Newberry are under this, and not Gainesville proper. You're under the yellow, which is a tropical storm watch. And then we have the hurricane watch going, pretty far into Georgia. No hurricane warning in Georgia yet, but this is expected to still be a hurricane in the South Georgia. So we have a lot of areas under this with the hurricane watch in towards South Georgia. I mean, you have areas like around Homerville, Valdosta, getting over toward Thomasville, Moultrie, Cairo, and Bainbridge. So this is a pretty widespread area. This is a fast-moving system, so I know the size is pretty big deal. This fast movement here, in some ways, could make it, even more serious because I know you still will have a core at this, a core of the system, and if you're not right at that core, you'll still have a little bit lesser impacts, obviously, if not quite a bit lesser impacts, but the core will still be pretty well intact in toward areas there in Georgia, so pretty well intact into areas of Georgia and the Peach State even. So just keep that in mind as we're looking at this. And you have the tropical storm watch. I mean, in the yellow there, that's areas like Stark. Again, we alluded to Gainesville, Jacksonville, St. Augustine. Pretty much everybody that's not under one of the other alerts is under a tropical storm watch, meaning tropical storm conditions will make things, too dangerous here as we look ahead, and precisely just conditions that are too dangerous to prepare for the potential tropical storm conditions within 48 hours. I know you have Waycross, Brunswick under that, so you got to be really cognizant of this. You have Albany, Tipton, so kind of, wide scope with this one. And even in tropical storm conditions, you can lose power. Of course, hurricane conditions is where you are more likely to have widespread and extended and extensive power outages. So that's the storyline with that. With it's an area with the hurricane, indications there. I know for the coastal hurricane warning, it goes from the Ant Clot River to Mexico Beach on that there. But again, inland's being shown here on the screen. And that's what we're trying to do under that tropical storm watch, even goes all the way across the state. I mean, you have that from areas there around Palm Beach and that Martin County line northward to the Savannah River and for Lake Okeechobee. And then we show you now the storm surge here information in just a moment. As Helene did get marked on the list here today officially, you can see that coastal storm surge threat, the feet above ground level, is shown here, and it looks very serious, very significant for coastal areas here. Depending on the ultimate track now, keep it in mind because the track, if you have the wind direction going a different way here, then you're not going to get the surge. So if it makes landfall around the Ocklackney River, a lot of these values will, probably come into play. But if it makes landfall further east, some of those areas further west won't get it as high as this. But we're talking about coastal Wakulla, coastal Jefferson County here, with this extreme to 10 to 15 feet threat. I know some areas have ordered evacuations as we look toward coastal areas of Taylor County, and even some of this could go, a little bit inland with the surge. We saw that in Adalia last year with the rivers and the like, and you have Dixie, Levy, and then Citrus. So that's kind of storyline there with the overall scenario. So again, hurricane threat here that we'll be tracking very carefully as we look here at the information. Let me see if there's any questions or comments from any of the viewers at home I know we have a lot of folks watching on Twitter/X here, and we have folks on YouTube watching and Facebook, and also here at Twitch is another platform that we're on. So again, just trying to give you the very latest on exactly what is happening here with our storm scenario. Again, it's important to evacuate here if you are ordered to do so. And in the storm surge vulnerable areas, it's especially the case with a storm surge warning in play here from Flamingo to Indian Pass, including Tampa Bay and Charlotte Harbor. And just, watching here the scenario as it does evolve, because you really, are really in some danger here. You got to take this really seriously. I know even 5 to 8 feet of storm surge is severe around Tampa and Tampa Bay, but then you have 6 to 10 feet further up the coast. But then in our area, some of that coastline, 10 to 15 feet. I mean, Cedar Key, they went through Adalia last year. Some impacts from Debbie this year, and they had a fire there last week, and now maybe this coming on through with surge that, depending on how high tide cycles kind of set up here and the exact motion, the exact intensity, that exact track, we could, see it worse than what they had in Adalia there. Dixie County, Horseshoe Beach got it worse with Adalia. It could be similar for you guys, if not, even not under the question, it could be a tad worse, because we didn't actually have all the worst factors come together, believe it or not, as bad as Adalia was around Horseshoe Beach. The values weren't as high as they could have been there. The storm was weakening just a little bit. Still a major hurricane when it hit, but it was losing a little bit of intensity, which kind of helped, just a little bit. Again, it was still catastrophic for folks there, as you all know, in our local area, but still, this could be worse than Adalia, and that is not good. I mean, it's like threatening, and that means you gotta get out if you are urged to evacuate. You gotta take this seriously, folks. As we go ahead and see some preparedness considerations, you want to secure property and decide whether evacuation is necessary. Life-threatening storm surge is likely across parts of the zone. There's a storm surge warning effect now for that, as we've alluded to. Then information about a basic disaster supplies kit. This applies, especially for folks that are staying, in areas where you can stay, that aren't quite as vulnerable, maybe from the wind, but enough that you're going to have that potential to lose power. You want to have water, non-perishable food, battery power, or hand crank radio, a no weather radio, flashlight, and first aid kit. And it's also important to have cash and gas. And we got to really be careful about mobile homes, even if you're not at the coast there, but under the hurricane warning, you may need to evacuate those, based on evacuation orders, but also just what you feel, is best for your safety. Full list there of supplies at ready.gov/kit. I know it's very important to charge your devices up, as power outages are likely, and then you need to be ready to move to an interior room in a tornadic situation here. As we are looking at things, you gotta be really, watching out for that threat. There's a chance we could even have some tornado warnings later tomorrow, so keep that in mind here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the situation. We have some flash flooding potential as well around the rainfall threat, with this moving a little quicker. It doesn't look to be catastrophic from that itself, of course, combined with storm surge could still really make things, the storm surge makes it catastrophic, and that just adds insult to injury, the rainfall. But now let's go ahead and see now some of the tornado safety tips here. I'm going to switch over to one of our other sources here in just 1 second, so you guys see what we're talking about with Helene. I know we'll have some tornado watches issued. That means conditions will be favorable for tornadic activity, so you want to stay tuned for the latest. And probably have multiple ways to receive alerts, and that's going to be picking up maybe as we get, into Ward Thursday especially. Even having to watch during the overnight hours of Wednesday night, depending on how the parameters come together. And then when a tornado warning is issued, tornado, that means it's been detected using radar spotted for what it's worth, we've seen a good bit of tornado warnings today around Indiana, and they're like not from the tropics, but there's been an overachievement of that. But we're gonna have some of those in our area with Helene as we look here. What it's going to be, it looks like Hurricane Helene as we look ahead. So you need to seek such into that sturdy building, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet or a football helmet, a baseball helmet, something like that. And you want to have those shoes, on in case you have that debris there on the ground in the aftermath of a tornado. You don't want to cut your feet up. So very important to keep in mind. And we'll have all the comprehensive coverage here for you as we look ahead in toward the timeline here, obviously. Trying to let you know exactly what is going on here with our storm system. Here's our coverage map. We're on for all tornado warning storms in the 62 counties, but we'll have obviously, coverage of the landfall of Hurricane Helene as that takes place later on that Thursday. So we got to keep that in mind, that we really got to remain alert for these rapidly changing weather conditions across the region. So I'm just going to take some model guidance. It's just coming in here in toward the weather center. I know, even, out ahead of the storm here later tomorrow in toward that Thursday, we could start to see some storms develop here. So I know it's kind of tricky here. The greatest tornado threat definitely be on Thursday, and even in the afternoon hours on Thursday before we have that landfall. But on that Wednesday, I know things like the Bradford homecoming football game have been moved to 5 o'clock tomorrow. Hopefully they can get that in. It's not a guarantee. I'm hopeful. If it's just passing downpours here, and that's based on one model. Other models, have been a little bit on a different page at points, but if we have some of that, hopefully they can get that in. Let me go ahead and check our GFS model here. I may say some of these to you here on our other source. I just wanted to look at them ahead of time to kind of get an idea of what they're displaying. And I see some pretty nasty weather even later tomorrow at this point. Not like just something where there will be breaks in at least gusty winds and the like. But that means that preparations really need to be wrapped up here as we look later tonight even. That's something to bear in mind as we're looking at things. That would be ideal at least as we're looking towards some of these different areas. It's not just an absolute must, but it definitely looks like there's going to be a good bit of moisture out ahead here of the worst from Helene. So, that could indicate a system that's not quite as tightly wound. So, maybe if in that case it doesn't get to a major hurricane, but we shall see. Hurricane is still dangerous. One isn't as bad as a 2 or a 3 though, but still, it's still dangerous. Even a 1 knocks out a lot of power. And, if it tracks in an area that hadn't been hit as much, by a worst of a storm, then it could be problematic. Let's say it tracks more into Tallahassee, which what the forecast is kind of showing right now, then that could be really problematic for you guys on Tallahassee and FSU because Hermine was pretty bad there. Michael was pretty bad. But if this tracks right into town, let's say even if it's not a cat 3, let's say it's just a cat 2, just in, quotation marks, it would be quite a bit worse than, those events here. And we had a tornado earlier this year. There are parts of town, some other tornadic activity there, with the slew of them on that day back in May. That was something that, in the areas that get hit again, this could be kind of comparable to, but could even be worse, could rival or even be worse than what happened in Caden 85 if we're not careful here. That was a big deal back then. So it's a tricky situation, and you just gotta keep that in mind. I know a lot of schools, being closed. FSU, they're closing that campus here as we look the rest of the week, and then a lot of primary and secondary schools, making the changes here as well. believe it's Thursday and Friday for Bradford County that they're closed, and then homecoming, the rest of the activities other than the game and the announcement of King and Queen, that's being moved there. The rest of it, other than that, the game and the announcement at halftime tomorrow, that's going to be on Saturday, with things like the parade in the morning, Tornado Whirl in the afternoon, an event that they have, and then in toward the evening there, a dance. But again, just continuing to track things here in toward the weather center. Let me jump back on over to the coverage map here again as we try to give you the very latest. Again, we're in Bradford County. That's what I'm talking about. Stuff like that a little more specifically here. We're under tropical storm watch right now in Bradford County. Gotta be careful because this could also wobble the other way, and since it's a little bit bigger, and right now we're not seeing worse, than some of the storms, that have, or even comparable to the very worst, like Irma or Dora. But if this were to shift here east, and we could be in that territory, and then a hurricane warning would be probably promptly issued. We start to see trends like that in a hurricane watch, and then you go to a hurricane warning if there's enough time to do it that way. But again, just continuing to track things here in toward the weather center. Let me go ahead and jump over to another one of our sources here right now. We'll go ahead and jump back on over to our satellite source here, and our mapping with the wind field forecast. You see where we could have the worst of the winds there. Getting toward at this point, it's going to be hurricane gusts when it's a tropical storm at 2 a.m. on Friday morning. That's the anticipation anywhere around Albany. The gust to hurricane force will be in that red circled area, and that kind of gives you that idea. But we'll have, the timeline doesn't work out as great, right now with the icons. But as we get closer, we'll be able to kind of see. I know we could still, it's not out of the question to have hurricane gust, closer to Stark here as well. But Lake City especially, Live Oak especially, even more concerned with the hurricane watch in play for you guys, and same with Newberry, Archer, off toward the west, of course, where it'll be even worse based on the anticipated track as of now. So again, obviously we got to really be careful on Tallahassee and the like. We do have the hurricane warning here in toward this maroon color. It does go down the coast some too, out of our area, Citrus and the like. And I know our mapping, we don't have all the alerts on here and the like. But as you can see here, we do have this hurricane warning in play in toward this maroon color. So just something to kind of keep in mind here as we track the situation. As we give you the very latest here, this is when conditions will be too dangerous to prepare for the hurricane within 36 hours. And, I said you really need to wrap up stuff tonight. I'll see that here in the modeling in a moment. But we'll kind of break it down hour by hour based on some different scenarios, because that, it's just forecasting some stuff out ahead here that we don't love to see with some type of different threats here, quite honestly, in terms of severe conditions. So let me go ahead and kind of load the HRRR run in here. And they're not going to always get it right, with tropical setups. But, we have the storm way to the south, and then we already have some stuff, not even maybe, directly with it in some ways here at points. But, already causing problems. I know we have lightning tracker on right now, and I'll take that out. There's some lightning now, but it's not too severe. I'll see current radar real quick. There's some stuff out there, western parts of the area and the Florida Panhandle, but, trying to get into that Big Bend region. But, okay, so this is the model guidance at 8 o'clock tomorrow. You already see some stuff here toward, a lot of the area is not covered, but let's go ahead and go to the local view. I know the storm is way to the south, and, this isn't going to do it perfect here. It's not a hurricane model, but it's going to probably pick up pretty good on some of this accent here. This is 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon. You see, you're already getting a lot of rainfall adding, to that a rainfall situation, which I know we do have some flood watches. That could actually make things worse. You see, Apalachicola, if we get a lot of rain out ahead here, then it won't take as much from the actual storm itself to have problems. You see, I'll still okay around Stark, Ocala, Gainesville at 1 o'clock tomorrow. 2 o'clock, you see some pop-up stuff around 3, and then 4 o'clock on this, reflection of the guidance and other guidance lists are different things. But you see, there's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock here, 7 o'clock, so maybe okay, depending on how things go around Stark in terms of maybe having a lightning delay or something like that. Not a guarantee, but you see some of the heavier convection off toward the west here, and then you have 8 o'clock again. You could, it wouldn't be ideal, and some of this points it'll be okay. With the cloud cover, a little cooler, not storms around. You can still prepare tomorrow. It's just at points it won't be ideal at all. And, if we have a warning, a tornado warning popping up into that, point for a little while, you wouldn't be able to. Again, it's not a huge chance tomorrow. It'd be going up quite a bit more on Thursday for that, but it's not completely zero for parts of the area. As we look there, you see this is getting in toward that Thursday morning. That's when we really probably start to, see the tornado parameters increase, and we hope with the lack of instability in the night that we don't get those warnings, because that'll make things really difficult for coverage if we have to be on for a while in the overnight. Wednesday night, hopefully things are stabilized enough where we don't get many warnings there out of that stuff before we start getting closer in with this, and this is getting toward about 7 a.m. on Thursday. You can see the storminess here. I mean, again, we're not with the core, but it's still going to be nasty. You're not going to have, the wind field still, won't be just overwhelming around Tallahassee probably. It'll just be, nasty weather, though. And you see, that's showing a lot of rain, and I don't like how that's setting up in the modeling. We were a little less concerned about the rain yesterday. What I see in this model makes me think that this pattern could give us more problems than we were hoping for, because it's going to be a quick moving storm, but if you get stuff out ahead, some of our models are showing close to a foot of rain now on Apalachicola, but it's going to vary a lot. A lot of areas will only get maybe a few inches, and you could still have widespread power outages, so it's a tricky situation here is what I'm trying to say as we look here. This is the expectation for noon there on that Thursday. And then this is as far as this view goes out, but you start to see this has the storm moving quicker, honestly, has quite a bit more disorganized, and that could be a factor too. If it, is more disorganized here, the pattern is, and you would probably have more stuff out ahead. And if it starts to really coalesce here, then you would have less of a threat. I know with Michael, we didn't really have any, hardly. I think there were some right before landfall, but we rarely had tornado warnings ahead of Michael in 2018 because it was just so, organized and so tightly wound with that devastation potential. But okay, let's see if we have the GFS from 18Z. We don't have it yet. Okay, I was just looking at it behind the scenes, but it's not quite in this system. I'll go ahead and kind of run this out. And what I want to tell you here is this is going, honestly, that's a little bit further off there toward the east than what the newest run is showing. So let me go ahead and kind of run it out here in toward the weather center. I mean, it's hard to tell when you're not able to compare it exactly, but as the new data just comes in, I mean, you see how it's going to clear out there by later on in the period. But we have hurricane warnings in play because we're going to have substantial impacts here as we look at things. Just kind of trying to look at this on the fly. I know, really, the organization with this, as I kind of compare them, it's actually not, the differences aren't maybe quite as big here, in the modeling. But there is definitely a little bit of an adjustment to the west, and that's closer to the official track because the official track is still even a little bit further west than the GFS. So it's just this model that's been picking up on this. A lot of times they don't, maybe use the GFS as much, but it's been picking up on this system for a while. So that's why I'm using, that some more to see the situations. So we'll be continuing to watch things. I'll have another update here later tonight as we get more in terms of local impacts and the like. But I wanted to jump in for a little bit since, right around that dinner hour, to kind of make you guys aware of what's happening in terms of those latest alerts. Again, a hurricane warning for this maroon color now on the screen. A hurricane warning in play. I mean, you know, you need to start wrapping your preparations up. You still have a little more time, you know, through, you know, tonight here. And we talked about how tomorrow may not be ideal at points. Technically, you'll still be able to do the prep. Some areas will be a lot better off than others. But it won't be ideal, but you can still get them done here at points if you're not under a severe weather warning or have lightning in the area, something like that. So again, just thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me. I see the folks watching on the different platforms there. You know, as we're looking there on places like YouTube, AJ watching, X there, Twitter/X, Ryan watching, and then you also have viewer Diggs watching there on Twitch, and then John on YouTube as well, watching there from Pinellas County. So again, continuing to watch the situation here, obviously, as it does progress here, as we give you guys the very latest here to protect you, your friends, and your family. So let me go ahead and jump back on over here real quick toward the graphics. So you guys kind of get an idea of what we're talking about in terms of the alerts on a wider scale per se, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the situation. We're just going to be continuing to monitor everything here as it evolves. I mean, you see 115-mile-an-hour major hurricane there off of roughly Tampa, maybe, you know, just south a little, but off that coast, getting that surge up there pretty high. But then even more concern as we get further on up here in terms of the hurricane winds and the like here in that red area, and that darker red there on the screen indicating the areas under the hurricane warning. Then you have there in the ward the pinkest color there, that's a hurricane watch. The yellow, that's a tropical storm watch. So you just gotta be cognizant of this, and in the hurricane warning especially, you got to take action to protect life and property at this point. I mean, there's no way around it here. You have to, you know, start taking those preparations to make sure things are okay. And now you see how the storm's still pretty far, the core of it's still pretty far in the Gulf here at 2 p.m. Thursday. It's a pretty quick moving storm. I mean, you see by 2 p.m. Friday, it's up in Tennessee, the core. But we have the stuff out ahead, and one model is showing if it's a little more intense, it might not have quite as much out ahead. It just depends. I mean, it could have it out ahead, and then it wraps it, and you have a kind of almost a break here before it kind of comes in. We'll see. Some of the models have kind of shown that, not, you know, total break, but that can sometimes kind of sort of happen. This is really rapidly intensifying here. So we'll see how that kind of evolves here, how that develops, as we continue to watch Tropical Storm Helene. Again, just trying to let you know exactly the different risk with this here as we get closer here in toward the timeline. So you just gotta be prepared here, obviously. I know we have that storm surge threat, you know, even going down the coast. I mean, even around Tampa Bay, 5 to 8 feet, which is still serious for them. But I mean, there are, you know, scenarios that can be far worse than that in that region. You know, you look back at the hurricane there, I believe it was 103 years ago. They've gotten so lucky, you know, from just a dire scenario like that one, especially considering population growth. And one day they won't be as lucky, but you know, if we have some adjustments east, that'll increase. The cone doesn't have it that far, you know, east with the potential, you know, of a landfall that far east at this point. More than likely, it wouldn't make landfall that far east, but you still have to watch for shifts since this is still a developing situation. So keep that in mind here. And you can even see 1 to 3 feet of storm surge maybe on the east coast here, and could have some, you know, water rises on the St. John's River and the like based on wind direction we saw. And it may not happen as much if this is, you know, especially making landfall a little bit further back toward Tallahassee. But in Irma, we saw those water rises. But if this makes landfall more toward Tallahassee, then, that's a situation where they could really have a lot of problems in the state capital here of Florida. So, got to keep that in mind there, too, as we're looking at things. Just have to be really mindful here of Helene and that dangerous threat, it poses from storm surge, wind as well, and other hazards like tornadoes and even heavy rainfall. He's told you about that potential maybe going up a little for some serious flooding in Apalachicola based on some model guidance. Even if they don't get as much surge there, you could still have a problem because you're in a situation, if you get like a foot of rain, they already had a lot of flooding concerns. We had a lot of issues from our storm system, Francine, even so far west, believe it or not, though, they still had a lot of rain there. They had tornado threat that we had to cover in toward Apalachicola, and if they get, a foot of rain there on top of what they've already seen, that's really problematic. So, again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on all of this. Just continuing to keep you guys up to date here. Again, you see right now it looks okay, for most of our area to consider, finishing up some of those preparations and continue doing those. But again, we're just going to keep on watching the situation here in the Weather Center as Helene, organizes and gets closer here. Again, that hurricane warning in play, as we're looking at things toward that red color, and it says up in a maroon color on our other system here. And you got to make sure you're getting prepared, protecting that life and property. So keep it tuned here on Cloud Weather. We'll keep you up to date. I see there's another update correction to the Hurricane Center's advisory that came across. I just want to make sure, everything, in terms of the winds are going to be the same. They're just correcting some alerts, but 50-mile-an-hour max sustained winds. The minimum central pressure 995 millibars here as we're looking at things, and that's going to deepen here, quite a bit pretty quickly here. I know we have the storm surge warning in play. And then on this map here, you have the hurricane warning in play from Aunt Cloud River to Mexico Beach, but then the inland impact being felt as well. So again, we're going to be here. We're going to be back with another update later tonight and provide the latest updates on the digital platforms and just on all the platforms as it is warranted. So for now, thanks so much for tuning in, trusting me. I'll check the questions one more time, see if we have anything here in Pinellas County. You guys down there, we'll just kind of be watching there, kind of our 62 counties, but we'll be watching, the storm surge could be pretty substantial there, depending on where you're at. I mean, you're talking about maybe around 5 to 8 feet, give or take there. That's serious. That, it's life-threatening. And then the gust, maybe just under hurricane force. Right near the coast anyway. So, could even get right near that edge of that, depending on how things set up. But that'll do it for now. We'll be back here on the different platforms as we look ahead toward the timeline. I know we're tracking Helene for you here very carefully in toward the Weather Center, trying to keep you guys safe and informed. Facebook there, Casey Cloud WX. We're on there on Clouds Weather, that Facebook page as well. I kind of moved this map over so you can see the alerts just a little bit more. That's the hurricane warning. See that a little bit more as we're wrapping it up. Twitter/Exit Cloud Casey. We have it where we can even stream directly to that there. And then you have YouTube at Cloud Weather. If you haven't already subscribed there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And then you have Twitch there, Cloud Weather, and then cloudweather.com. So thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me for now. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud in the Weather Center.